Welcome to Dulles. We're a community of faith that embodies the love of Jesus for the good of our neighbor and renewal of our world. We're so glad you're listening.
I believe the day will come when you will look back on this fall and you will not think a whole lot about who you voted for or maybe who you voted against. You really won't think of the fall of 2024 in terms of political impact. What you will recollect, what you will think back on, is you choosing this new kingdom and to become part of the movement of Jesus' church in our world. This movement where Jesus' church, the church that he had in mind, that he was dreaming of, becomes hope and life for those around us. That you'll look back and say, that was the fall where we began to coalesce even more as a family, as a church family, around this idea of actually the movement of Jesus, his life, and good and beauty in the world. And man, that's terribly exciting. I want to start with one verse from Colossians. Colossians is a letter that Paul wrote to an early church in the first century. And this is going to just set up kind of where we're going here for the next few minutes. And giving joyful thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance. He's talking to early followers of Jesus. Not perfect people, not people who understand all theology and everything about Scripture, but people who've chosen to surrender their lives to this new kingdom. He says, and this is kind of a continued thought, in giving joyful thanks to the Father who has qualified you, who's made you worthy, who said, yes, you are now part of the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. That's not just fancy church language or Bible talk. This is a kingdom that now contrasts the kingdom of darkness, the kingdom of depression and anxiety and the need to be in control and the need to be right. That kingdom is going to fade away as this new kingdom takes charge. And you, followers of Jesus, are inheriting the rights of this kingdom. All right, we'll come back to this in just a minute. Some of you have met Amy's lifelong friend, Nicole. They met when they were 11 or 12, I think. Nicole and Tyler have been here with us 2 or 3 times on a Sunday morning since we started here just 2 or 3 years ago. Nicole has lived her whole life in Philadelphia. Amy's lived her whole life in Virginia. And when we got married, I was in school in Virginia Beach, and Amy moved to Virginia Beach, and we were away from friends and family, and Nicole surprised Amy one day, called her and said, I'm coming this weekend. And Amy, it was one of those phone calls where people are screaming, and it sounds like, something awful's happened, but they're actually excited and happy and crying. Amy's like, Nicole's coming. And so that whole week, I just remember counting 4 more days till Nicole's here, our little apartment on campus housing in Virginia Beach. And the morning that, I think it was probably a Friday morning, Nicole called. This is before cell phones. This is before GPS, and that will matter in just a minute. Nicole calls early that morning. I'm leaving. I've got my coffee, And so Amy's starts the clock. She's just counting down 5 hours, I think she was going to be there for lunch. A couple hours later, the phone rings, and Amy answers, and she's like, and I remember vaguely, she was like, oh no. And Nicole was saying, hey, does this seem right to you? I'm seeing signs for Hershey and Harrisburg and Lancaster. And Amy's like, no. And some of the backstory is we had already been making fun of Nicole, and so did her family. And she was brilliant. She's had a really impressive professional career. But somewhere along the lines, the dots just didn't connect on geography. I don't know. She never had a sense of direction. And so sometimes at dinner, when we're with Tyler and Nicole, I'll just pop quiz her, where is England? And, she'll be pointing towards near Australia, or, it's just, is California on the West Coast or East Coast? And so anyway, we kind of mocked Nicole. Well, anyway, she's like, this doesn't seem right. I'm seeing signs for Lancaster. something feels off. And Amy's like, yes, it should feel off. You're going west. We're south. And Nicole was like, I thought I thought Virginia Beach was west. Anyway, she eventually made it, probably by dinner time that evening. Amy was super disappointed because it delayed everything. And of course, I'm making fun of her. And I remember somewhere in that weekend, she's kind of recalling this, seeing those signs. And something didn't feel right. But then when she was on the right course, in the right direction, she started to feel right. There was something that felt right when she's in Delaware and sees signs for Maryland. And then she sees signs for Virginia. And she knew, okay, this is right. And then she starts seeing signs for Virginia Beach. And the way she described it, it felt right. It seemed right. I knew I was in the right place. This is looking right because of the signs. N.T. Wright is a Bible scholar, really well-known Bible expert, New Testament scholar among my world of pastors. He's taught at Oxford and Cambridge, and it's really become well-known around the world for just his expertise in the New Testament. And he describes Paul's letter to Colossians as one of the clear statements, one of God's, through the Apostle Paul's, messages and pictures of you and me, followers of Jesus, being signposts of this new, dramatically different kingdom. The signposts aren't attending church 1 hour on a Sunday and hearing a pastor stand up front and talk about the signpost. Colossians tells us you are the signpost. When someone encounters you as a follower of Jesus, something feels right. Something seems right. Something looks more beautiful and rings true in our spirit that those words, that story, that worldview that this person is describing is true. It's more true than what I've known, what I've lived. Again, I'm going to just put this verse on the screen again, if we could. And giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance. This isn't just a taking. We know this from the whole context of what Jesus taught, what the apostles teach in the New Testament. When you inherit from God, it's not just for you. You become this ambassador. You become this agent of the beauty, of the good. That you are now qualified to share in this inheritance of his holy people in this kingdom of light. N.T. Wright said, and I could put many, many, many quotes on the screen, the lives of those who follow Jesus act as signs that point the way to a whole new creation. It's not someone standing up front in front of a church gathering who's giving the signs. It's you. When you choose this kingdom over the kingdom that divides and cancels and calls people out and embarrasses, over the kingdom that is guilt-ridden and just carries shame as our identity, when you choose this new kingdom over the kingdom that has to be in control, we have to be right. By choosing this kingdom, not only do you step into the beauty and the good, you now become a bearer, an agent of this new creation. We are the signs that point to the reality that something different is here. Something new has begun. When people see you, when they interact with you, when there's stress on that work project, when there's family stress, we all have dysfunction at home in some way, of course. When someone encounters you, are they seeing more and more that there's a different king in charge? I've thought it was American politics. I've always thought it was the 4-year cycle of elections. I've always thought it's left or right, taking this stand in society. But when I'm around you, when I hear you talk about the world, there's something different in charge. There's a new level of truth. And I can sense it. Something seems right. I feel closer when I'm with you. I feel closer to the true reality. There's a hint here to the overarching message of Colossians. And we're not going to read the whole book of Colossians this morning. I encourage you to read it this week. We're going to look at one more small section here in just a moment. But just rereading Colossians 1:12. This is at the beginning of the letter. And giving joyful thanks. Giving joyful thanks. Can you just picture that? Can you picture it for yourself? Living in a space, regardless of what's happening in life, regardless of the challenges, the uncertainty, the unexpected, that you're not just expressing thanks or gratitude, but you're doing so with joy. In this broken world, with the effects of this awfully hurtful, disappointing kingdom that reigns and controls this world, in this broken world that we live, and all the hurt, you living as someone who expresses thanks and gratitude with joy, this is the first hint to a driving message of Paul to this young church through this letter of Colossians. And it relates to what I would do. I'd be tempted to go out and just look at the sky like, God, where are you? This makes no sense. This hurts, and the pain just has gone from one year to another. Now we're in year 3. And God welcomes this, by the way. He's not afraid of this kind of language. David models it in many of the Psalms. Many of the Psalms, David is like, God, you were with me. Where did you go? Here I am in the dark of the night. And then as David would persist, and he would continue to place his trust in God, you would see, oh, God, there you are. Now I see. Now I see you were in control the whole time. You were developing something in me. My trust is deepened in you. This is much of the pattern of the Psalms. There were nights I would walk outside, and something would happen in me where instead of looking at the sky with frustration or anger, I'm even kind of balling my fist here, where sometimes that's just our reaction. God, where are you? I would get distracted by the stars. And Holly and I were joking again this morning. Holly, who's running our screen this morning, she's been a longtime science teacher in high school, and she's a space geek. I call myself a space geek, and so maybe I'm a little biased in this, but I just start to notice the stars, or the moonrise, and I'd get lost in creation and find myself grateful. Even in the pain, and even in, Amy's at home, she can't even, there's times where, you may remember like a year ago, Amy would stand over here on the side because she just couldn't sit. There was like a year where Amy had trouble just sitting because of the pain. And I've left Amy at home, and I'm trying to get answers from God, and I just am suddenly looking at the sky. And the surge would run through my spirit that God is creator. And God's work is so vast, and it's on a level, and it's a level of complexity that I certainly will never understand. And he's working good even in the uncertainty or the unanswered questions. He's working good. This is what he does. He creates. Colossians tells us, like so many places in the New Testament, that you are the signpost for the world around you, for neighbors, people in your house, strangers you encounter. You are the signpost that there's something new here. There's a new creation. There's a new kingdom at work. And one of the specific signs that people are to see in you is gratitude. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you were called to peace. And be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns. Now, these can sound like boring church words, hymns And so we're going to walk around and sing songs to each other. This isn't an age of the church where this was a natural expression. We walk into an auditorium today with house system music playing, and that's just natural to us. We do that in elevators, and that's part of our world today. In the early church, they would actually greet one another with songs, and they were instantly filled with joy when they shared hymns that pointed to truth in this new creation. So that's the context in which Paul's writing here, with wisdom, with all wisdom, through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Singing to God with gratitude. Here's this, be thankful. Now singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, whether in relationship and conversation, over meals with one another, or actually practicing, being practitioners, practicing the good and the beauty of God, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. This thanks, give thanks. Be people who carry gratitude. Demonstrate in whatever you face gratitude, because God is at work. His resurrection shows that he is already recreating in this broken world. His resurrection could have been somehow in another realm, or on the other side of the universe, or in heaven. His resurrection happened in one of the most oppressive times in human history, in the southeastern corner of the Roman Empire, after the most, experts will still say that Roman execution is still possibly the worst form of death that humans have ever known. In this misery that was the first century Roman Empire, Jesus came back from the dead. In that context, in this broken world, and he now offers us resurrection from guilt, from mistakes we've carried, from that loud opinion of the person that can be so irritating that he's now calling you to show love to. We put vain hope in political elections to change our world. And there's good that can happen, and elections matter, and we should care. But we put our faith in these things. And we put our faith in human leaders that will eventually disappoint. Every human leader we elect will end up disappointing you in some ways, because they're human and broken. When you put your trust in the one who came out of the tomb on the third day and now has power not to just create miracles and do beautiful works in someone's life, but now has power over death, you are a part of a whole different kind of kingdom, where even in the face of hurt or challenge or uncertainty, God's at work. I don't know if you can relate to, in this busy world of ours, just going on a walk at night and looking up at the stars. I don't know, that might seem like a waste of time, or maybe years ago, you just stopped looking at the stars years ago. There is something about our God as creator. When we look at creation, that's why I try to walk near water in the mornings, and in the woods there's a little path not too far from our house that takes me through the woods. And it's not just this feely thing like, oh, I'm in the trees, I feel close to God. I see what was created out of nothing. And it tells me something about the author and creator and this king of this other realm that I'm now pledging my allegiance to. And in the face of questions I can't answer or pain that I still feel, I know that this creator is at work, now recreating out of hurt and awful and even out of death. Thanksgiving, having this heart of gratitude, develops a mindset of abundance in us rather than scarcity. See, when you're devoted to the other kingdom, you look at what's wrong and the bully and that person I just can't believe. I can't believe what they did to me. When you're devoted and focused, and this is what repent means, by the way, to change direction. When you have actually repented, meaning I'm changing direction and I'm now focusing on this new kingdom, this new reality, those people don't hurt you as much anymore. You don't dwell, you don't find yourself daydreaming about the anger or the way you were treated. Or why won't God just solve this problem? You're now focused on, I don't understand, I don't have all the answers, but I know this God who created is recreating. And he's creating something in me. And maybe before I see it on the outward and I see it in the external, he's working something more important, more significant internally. Maybe that's his first work in me. But I trust it because he's the creator. Thanksgiving helps us clearly see the good that God is working even in this broken, disappointing world. So this is Thanksgiving week. This was placed on our calendar by a U.S. president. I've never, ever heard. There's always been jokes about Thanksgiving and our dysfunctional families, and we pay all this money to fly across the country and sit with people we don't like and who irritate us. That's kind of a running cliche or joke, but man, I've never heard it like this year. Families are debating. I've seen YouTube videos about it in the last week. Like, our families decided not to get together this Thanksgiving after this election because we'll kill each other. It's so discouraging and sad, and there's maybe a little bit of that in our family. We've had those conversations. But listen, this is an American holiday, and yes, it matters, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, but our God, 2,000 years ago, called us to a Thanksgiving that is a sign. It's one of the signs. When people see you, when their path takes them past you, and they're like, I'm getting closer. This feels right. I didn't realize I was going in the wrong direction. This friend, this man, this woman, when they talk, when I watch the actions of their lives, I know I'm getting closer. One of the signs that Paul tells us they will see and know they're closer is you being someone who is full of gratitude. In the face of whatever is happening in your life, you're grateful that the God that you've turned to, away from the broken, away from the disappointing, the control-centered kingdom, the God you've turned to is creating. He's recreating. He's remaking out of bad and hurt and death something beautiful. And so I'm grateful. And with that, I'm going to send you on your way into this Thanksgiving week by reading a text over you, and I'm going to have you stand. This is our close to the series. This is our benediction to where we've been the last couple of months as we continue to say yes to this new, upside down, radically different reality than the kingdom that is so familiar to us, this broken, incomplete kingdom. This is Psalm 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. This is written in a time where there's challenging and there's invading armies and there's threats, very real threats approaching. Give thanks to the God of gods. That's a statement to say there's a lot of gods in this world. I don't know what gods you're tempted to chase or devote your life to, but then there's the God, the God. Give thanks to that God, the God of gods. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. His love endures forever. To him alone does great wonders, who does great wonders. His love endures forever. Who by his understanding made the heavens. His love endures forever. Who spread out the earth upon the waters. Now I'm envisioning here the psalmist now suddenly looking at the moon and the stars and the ocean and just contemplating. There's a lot of threat in my life, but wait a minute. How did this ocean, how did it actually emerge? It's the source that I'm chasing that created this. Who made the great lights. His love endures forever. The sun to govern the day. His love endures forever. There'll be no end to this kingdom. This empire will never end. This is the king who will reign forever. The moon and stars to govern the night. His love endures forever. To him who divided the Red Sea asunder, his love endures forever. And brought Israel through the midst of the Red Sea, his love endures forever. But he swept Pharaoh and his army into the Red Sea, his love endures forever. To him who led his people through the wilderness, his love endures forever. He remembered us in our low estate, his love endures forever. And freed us from our enemies, his love endures forever. He gives food to every creature, his love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven, the God of this new kingdom. His love endures forever. I love you guys so much. I love becoming this church and this movement along with you. We're going to eat breakfast together next Sunday morning. Those of you who are in town, if you're traveling, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And let's choose this Thanksgiving, regardless of what is waiting from you across that Thanksgiving table on Thursday. Let's be people, agents, representatives, signposts of this new reality. This is how the world changes.